Okay, so I wanted to share this with you. Yesterday, I wrote this very brief post about how there's no competition for your book, and I spoke about the importance of writing in your own voice and also investing in your book. And in reply to that, someone sent me this book. They sent me their sales page and they asked for my opinion on the book. So, what I did is I've gone through and I've listed everything I would do to improve this listing of this book. So this doesn't include, of course, editing the book, which it would definitely need, and it would need formatting as well. So this was a prime example of the mistakes that authors make when they launch a book, and particularly when they do it by themselves and they don't get help. So this author didn't publish with us. Instead, of course, they got in touch and said, my book isn't selling very well. What can I do? What's wrong with my listing? You can see it's published in February. So I went through and gave some feedback. So straight off the back, we have the title. The current title of the Master Race. I'm not a big fan of this title. I understand that the book, is about World War II and what happened post that point, but it doesn't come across in a great way. That title, it comes across like a bit of a statement. So that would be something to change straight away. Either way, even if the author didn't want to change the title, they must absolutely change the subtitle. Well, they need to add a subtitle because there is no subtitle at the moment. And for example, because it's a thriller, by adding that to it, it's going to help in terms of the SEO. So other things they could add would be something to the, nature of espionage or historical fiction, that's going to speak to readers who like this genre. So right there, that's why your subtitle is so important when it comes to, your book. So moving on then, the description, straight away jumped out as, just a huge issue. It's got these little quote marks for a start, so it shouldn't have that. It's not formatted correctly. It's all just jumbled up. It's just a mass of text, and you're not going to read it. You would just skip by this. So, for example, as I said, it lacks formatting, and I see this mistake a lot. It also mixes the plot summary with the marketing copy too quickly. There's grammar issues, clarity issues, the tone shifts as well. So it's quite serious to start with, then it becomes more cheesy near the end. It's a bit confusing for anybody who's interested, might be considering, buying and reading this book. So you can see here I created a rewrite. Of course, this makes it very clear. So it states it's 1945, the war is ending, but evil is far from over. And it's sets the scene very nicely for what you're going to get. We're talking then here decades later, in the shadowy years of the Cold War. It's going to sell this book a lot more than this jumble. There isn't even proper, spacing and everything. So you can see the changes that would be made, and of course you can use bold, in these descriptions. So the blurb here is a huge issue. Basically, people's eyes go from they land, they'll have seen title, subtitle, they'll then see book cover, which I will get onto in a moment. Then they have a look at the description. And this is not me, having a go, as it were, at the author. This is just me using this as a great example because it features the majority of the mistakes we see when people launch a book. So cover design, like I said, is next. As you can see, there's also things that if you design a cover yourself, things that might come across as, oh, that's, a good idea. So the red kind of crumpled paper, the idea was obviously, military and for that time period. Problem is it comes across really amateurish. The other issue, it's not even straight on the page. You can see there's some bleed here on the edging as well. So immediately we'd see that, and someone would just not buy this book, once they've seen that cover, even before they got to anything else. They're not going to do that. Also, this kind of, because again, I know this book is a great example of mistakes for so many reasons, because even though it's about, after the World War II, and they are portraying, of course, the Nazi Empire as, evil and all these kind of things, by using the imagery, it creates, people would land on that and think it's almost coming across as promoting it because it's got that symbol on it. So again, this can be, the reason this is such a good case study is that's of course not the author's intention. And this can be applied to all sorts of book covers about all manner of topics. You have to really think very carefully about what goes on that cover and how it might be interpreted by your audience. Again, this is why it's so important to have a professional do this for you. Font choice, overall aesthetic, it doesn't scream thriller or historical fiction. So people who like that genre aren't going to land on that and say, oh yes, I'd like to, purchase that book. You can see I've been typing this as I've gone. So, more cinematic color scheme, visual anchors, a map would probably be better, or a soldier, or a war-torn flag, or some Falklands imagery, would be much better to use in this example. Then we're going to move on to categories and to keywords. So this is another key area that people get wrong. And straight off the bat, we can see here one big mistake is this book is listed as being a law book, which of course is just not the right fit at all. Lots of people, it's going to hurt the visibility, of course, and it will completely confuse readers because they'll land, well, even if someone clicked on that, they'll land on it and say, this isn't what I'm looking for. Or if you did land on the book and you were, scrolling through, and then you see, oh, it's a law book, this isn't what I was looking for. So a better thing to do would be to use correct and high traffic categories. So you've got historical thrillers, espionage thrillers, war military fiction, things like that. And then you need back-end keywords as well. These are the sorts of things that people who like this area of history, that they would be searching for. So then looking at, again, about the author, there's no image, there's no details about the author, again, so when you are a new author, it's so important that you give information about who you are, because people are taking a risk. They don't know who you are. They don't know if your writing's any good. So you need a professional headshot, bio. So here's kind of a sample bio that could be written. And then the book itself, you need to make sure that this is, the prose, how it strikes a balance between tension and believability. This is kind of more directed at, this particular author. So as you can see, there is a lot covered there in terms of how this could be improved. Big mistakes ultimately. The summary is title. Really think carefully about your title, your subtitle, not just to communicate more information, but from an SEO perspective. You also need to think about your blurb, because that's what sells the book. The cover design, of course, is huge, but then often what's overlooked are these categories, keywords, the author profile, things like that, which are going to help with your book launch. If you would like me to take a look at your book, please do submit it. You can do that by replying to the email, to this Substack email. I'd be more than happy to take a look and give some feedback. And if you would like a professional team to publish your book, do your book cover, do all of this for you, do your editing, and give your book a chance of success, of doing well, of actually investing in your book, then do drop us a line. We would love to help you out.